Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Conversation Podcast. Today, my guest is Luke MacDonald. How are you?
Very well, David.
So, could you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I currently I'm the owner of Aerobics First in Halifax, Nova Scotia, on Quimple Road, and my partner is Dean Chevry. He's been at the store for 30 years. I've been there for 15, and the store opened in May of 1980. And so my job at the store is to be the community outreach guy. So I'm responsible for um making the store known in the community for doing uh, some cool volunteer type of work and trying to inspire uh, the community to be a better place through doing fairly easy little tasks like picking up litter, uh, helping Kenyans produce products, uh, all kinds of little fun things that I think helps our business by helping the community de-stress a little bit.
Yeah, so part of the reason you were invited on the podcast is because of your community outreach. You do many things. You are a man of many hats.
Yes.
And Aerobics First is only a small part of what Luke MacDonald is about, I believe.
Yeah, but it is the foundation. You have to remember,
Yeah.
I drew a picture many years ago when I was a teenager on how I was going to become the owner of this particular store, and why I liked the store so much was because of its community foundation. So I thought the opportunity of owning that store and becoming a shoe fitter was going to be great. So I, I really, there's the map that I drew originally of how I was going to buy it. It took 25 years to buy it. Um, and so it's sort of a long story, but a lot of the things I do, uh, I'd say, are based on knowing that most of my ideas are not going to come to fruition for about 10 years. And so I think of things in the long term and I try to project into the future what it's going to look like in 10 years. And so, and then when the 10-year comes up, generally a lot of things have taken place. And then I put it together to make it a little bit bigger. So there's a few examples of that. And the one that we're most closely related to is the Sparks Fly bikes, or the mini silent exercise bikes that we've put into classrooms over the last 10 years, which is now over 7,000 bikes around the world. And that was done in order to reduce stress in the classroom for the teacher, for the kids, and for the community. So if you take care of those kids in a classroom, you're actually taking care of the community and helping the community de-stress, which is the role I play in Halifax. What I didn't know necessarily is that it would spread across Canada and around the world, but why I got associated with you was you were doing basically the same thing simultaneously, but you were the teacher and I was an outsider. So I was outside the teaching organization, but when I saw you buy, I don't know how many bikes that you fundraise for, but I saw at least one picture with you with, I think, 30 bikes. And I said, holy mackerel, this guy gets it. And that really inspired me to keep going, because I knew that I could turn to you and say, hey, listen, this is the National Teacher of the Year using the Spark bikes, and the picture of you with all your peers on those bikes, I think you had it as your Twitter feed, was very much inspiring, because you connected back to me to say, hey, good job, Luke. And then I just watched you and I said, hey, good job. You have no idea how much you're helping. And so it's just, that's how we really met, is that we had this little thing going, and that your action validated some of the work because a lot of people will say, well, you sell sneakers. What do you know about kids? And I'd say, well, check out David Benet's work. He's the National Teacher of the Year. Look at the stuff he's doing. And so it's really a two-way street with regards to what has to happen in order to de-stress a community. You have to have the teachers on board, and then you have to get business people on board. And if you put those two together, you have the opportunity to create a movement, which I think we had a significant role to play in introducing the thought of movement in a classroom to calm down a kid in order for them to have the opportunity to learn in that classroom as opposed to disrupt that classroom.
So this Sparks Fly could be in itself an entire podcast, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a very, very motivational story, and the people that are listening, if you go on the YouTube channel, I'll be putting pictures up of the different bikes that have been put in the different classes in the entire country. So that itself is a big piece of the puzzle. That's how we know each other, through the bikes, and then I got to learn about your other programs as well. So not only do you own a shop successfully, you've also done a lot of volunteer work, because I know how long it takes to build one of those bikes, and I'm not sure how many you've built. I've only built a few, but how many did you build?
Personally, I've probably built 30, but I had a guy that became a very good friend, Reg. He was a teacher that saw what he was. Sorry, he was a parent, and he has, I think, 4 kids that were going to one particular school named Ian Forsyth, which happened to be the school that John Carson from Run for Life went to when he was a kid. So John Carson runs the organization that actually thought of the idea. And where I helped as a salesman is I helped roll it out as a salesperson. That's what I do. I sell stuff. I sell sneakers and skis and stuff like that. And so I was a benefit to them in order to create the sales pitch that they were able to roll out. So anyway, so a lot of credit has to go for John, because it was his first thought that actually made it happen. But what ended up happening with Reg is he saw the value of the bike, so he started to do the fundraisers here. And then beyond fundraising, he was my chief mechanic, and he was involved in building about 400 bikes, and he probably built 200 personally himself. And so that's a volunteer parent that really understood it. And Ian Forsyth ended up being one of the very first schools that had a bike in every class by the time we finished.
And just so people know, like, once you get good at it, it takes maybe 30 minutes to build, but the first few take a bit longer, at least from my experience.
Yeah, and what we ended up doing, actually, we found it became the better way to do it for us. We had Eric from École de Fort, Carrefour, I think, actually, École de Carrefour. Anyway, I might be making a mistake there. But what we did with the first batch that I think we actually did right, they got 26 bikes, I think, in one shot. But what we had is he had all the kids that were most likely to need to use the bike come and build the bikes. So the kids built them, and then we had the kids name the bikes. So he made it very personable, and it allowed the bikes to be accepted into the school fairly smoothly, because they all had names. It helped reduce stigma, because that was very, very early on. They really bought in. So that was cool.
So that's the work that you've done in your community that expanded throughout the nation.
Yeah.
I'll put a few links, because I think you were on CBC for this project.
Yeah.
You've also, if you follow Luke on Twitter or Facebook, he's got a few hashtags. One of them is World Litter Run.
Yes.
And the other one is fitted forward. Can you explain to the listeners what those are?
Okay, so they're essentially the same thing. So what I've in 2015, myself, I had a bit of an anxiety attack because the winter of 2014 and 15 was the worst winter we've had on the East Coast in terms of the amount of snow that we had. I looked at it, and there was, I think, 4 Wednesdays in a row our shop was closed due to a snowstorm. And that snow never really went away until, the 1st of April. And so when all the snow sort of melted away, I had never, ever seen so much litter. And usually at 12:30 on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go for a run. So this was, I can't remember exactly what day it was, but it was one of those 3 days. I went for a run, and I went about 1.5 kilometers, and I had an anxiety attack. And it wasn't, I don't want to say that it was like a full-on anxiety because I know what those are. But it was such an overwhelming feeling that I said, I can't run. And the thing is, with my runs at lunch, they're the runs I use to calm myself, just to make sure I'm enjoying the day and I think through a few things, and it resets my day. And so that's what I was doing. And then I saw so much litter. I said, I just can't go. I'm just going to go back to the store. And so I went back to the store, and the next day, 2 days later, one of my good friends from Kenya showed up, who was going to St. Mary's and happened to be the best runner in Nova Scotia at the time. His name is John Kudo. He comes in, and I said, hey, John, you want to go for a run? He said, sure, Luke, because he'll say sure, Luke, to anything. Like he'll do anything. And so what I did was I grabbed a couple of our shopping bags, and he said, well, what are we doing? I said, we're going to go pick up litter. And he said, sure. Oh, that would be fun. And we're going to run my 5K loop. Well, normally that 5K loop would take him 15 or 16 minutes. It would take me 20 to 25 minutes. But we took an hour to do the loop. And all we did was pick up litter and run. And we picked up 19 bags of litter on that one run. But we had a blast. Like, we laughed the whole time, and we got lots of honks and lots of thanks. We had some people picking up for us. As we went around, we dumped the litter in. And I said, you know what? I think I could start a social movement on this. So let's take a couple pictures of us picking up litter, because I'm running with a Kenyan, and I'm Canadian. So why don't we call it the International Litter Run, which eventually became the World Litter Run. And I just thought it was funny. But then over time, I started to really enjoy it. So I kept picking it up. And then in Kenya and in Gambia, my friends from those countries, they also start to pick it up. And it just started to gain momentum, because when those guys are picking up garbage, I might be picking up 200 or 300 pieces per run. These fellas were picking up tens of thousands of pieces. And it became very significant over there to my friend Pamadou in the Gambia, and another fellow named Maulid in Mombasa, Kenya. So here's where it interlinks with the Sparks Fly. So what I realized, what I was doing, because the Sparks Fly movement was happening at the same time. And when I was speaking to Dr. Shanker and Dr. Susan Hopkins, I just had a thought. I basically said, if it takes 2 or 3 minutes on a bike, which you're trying to sort of scientifically prove, how much time on the bike does it take in order to get the serotonin release or the dopamine release, or to get the hit in order to calm the kids? How long does it take? So the scientists were looking at that. And what I did is I didn't go anti-bike, but I said, what if a little kid or a kid went and picked up litter? Is an empathetic response and movement better than just movement? If that kid understands that they can give the world a hug by picking up a piece of litter and putting it away and not thinking about the person that threw it, Because if you think about the person that threw it, you're going to be angry. But if you think about the world you're picking it up from and thinking of Mother Nature, it's going to make you happy. So it's a real attitude shift to say, okay, don't think of anything negative. It's the best thing in the world. Pick up the litter, put it away, and you've helped that little piece of litter get together with its buddies. And I thought that is a very inexpensive way to help a child understand self-regulation or co-regulation, or, I've called it community regulation. I've called it world regulation, because that act is to reduce stress. So almost whatever you do based on your attitude, you can do anything. Any poor person or just people without means, they often think that they have nothing to give. Well, they do have something to give, because there's something there to do. And to give is to give the time to pick up that little piece of litter and put it away. And you've given the world a hug. And that feels good. So anybody in the world can give the world a hug immediately, right? It takes no time to do it. And I think that creates a serotonin hit, because it works for me, that will calm people down a little bit, as long as they have a good attitude about it. And so that's sort of how the World Litter Run started, but it was going along the same lines as Sparks Flies. So when I was reading about the bikes, I was thinking about other things that I could do and that people without means could do, because the bikes are expensive. It was a lot of places struggled and worked really hard to, like Reg and Krista, as an example, going back to my bike builder, I have no idea how many biscuits they made in order to sell to buy bikes. So they had, biscuits for bike program. Right. So they cooked and did bake sales and did all kinds of stuff to raise the money for the bikes. And I wanted another way for poor people to access the opportunity to give the world a hug. Just like the bikes, the background of the bike is, I wasn't necessarily doing it for the kids. My goal was to give the teachers a hug, which would be exponential if those teachers really felt they were cared for by the community. That would be unique, because the teachers, it's just completely misunderstood, the value they are to the community. And, a lot of people will backlash against the teacher and stuff like that. But, I'm from a family of educators. It's just, I sucked at school, and I was I was the black sheep of the family, because I couldn't get through university. And then all my other, other siblings are teachers, my sisters. And I was bouncing everything off them as I went through this process. So when people would say, Luke, you just sell shoes. Well, how can you talk about this? Well, I run everything by teachers.
Yeah.
So that's the World Litter Run. And what the World Litter Run turned into was Fitted Forward, which is shoes for homeless. So this is the shoe that I told the story about, that I now call the $5 million shoe. And at the time, what was happening with this is I was working with Brian Moran of the Start to Finish program. And in Halifax, at the time, I was directing the running and reading programs in schools. And one of the projects that we did with this Start to Finish was that we provided shoes, running shoes for the kids, because at the end of the year, we take them to our Blue Nose Marathon, and they'd all have nice running shoes on to run with. But what happened was, one kid that I was fitting, he had this particular pair of shoes on that was worn by his two older brothers and completely worn out. This was a size 9. When the kid pulled his foot out of it, he was actually a size 12. And I said, oh my God, that's crazy. And then a couple times, what I was doing, because I get invited to a fair amount of fundraising dinners, what I do at the fundraising dinner is I sit down and I put this shoe on the table. And then inevitably it would spark some conversation up. And then people would start to say, really? Kids in Halifax wear this? And I said, yeah. I tell them the story, and some of them would write me a check for shoes.
That's awesome.
So it was at that time that I realized how desperate the shoe situation was. And so what I did, in conjunction with the Blue Nose Marathon, I had found out that they had 5,000 unpicked up Blue Nose shirts, and they had 5,000 unawarded Blue Nose trophies, Blue Nose medals. And I went to the warehouse and I saw all this stuff, and I said, well, this can't be good for this warehouse owner's business because it's taken up so much room. And I said, what if I took those new shirts that are from past marathons, and what if I take these medals off your hands? They said that would be awesome because he would save all that warehouse space, which would mean he's going to save money. And then I asked permission of the Blue Nose organizers if I could do it. And they said, sure, but what are you going to do with them? Because we don't want to just give them to anybody in Canada because they should be earned from running. I said, what if I had people do an act of kindness in order to get that medal or to get a shirt? She said, that would be fantastic. I said, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise $5,000 and I'm going to buy a container, and I'm going to load up the container, which we call the container of love, with all these shirts and all these medals. And then we added bikes, we added drums, we added trombones, all kinds of really cool stuff. And we sent it to the Gambia to my buddy, Paul Madu. And if in order to get a shirt over there, you had to participate in a peace run, a shirt or a medal, you had to participate in a peace run or pick up litter. And so that's how we turned this liability into an asset. And the amount of litter and the amount of world litter runs being done over there was significant because Pa Madu ended up becoming the national director for the UNESCO group in Gambia. And that's, hundreds and hundreds of people that will go out and pick up litter or participate in peace runs and all this stuff. And they're all wearing Blue Nose shirts. And so the Blue Nose Marathon people saw, holy mackerel, look what everybody's doing over in the Gambia. They're doing all these great deeds. And they incorporated that into their presentation to an organization that runs the most sustainable sporting event in Canada awards. And they ended up winning, I think it's called the Prestige Award, tying the Rogers Cup for the most sustainable event, because what they had done by having all this litter picked up, it created a negative carbon footprint, because the litter that they were picking up and the shirts they were using and the metals that they were sort of using in order to do this good stuff turned from a liability to an asset. And so that's a little bit of a long way around the connection, but all I did was I took the same thought to my industry, and I was approached by Brad Markova, who used to be the general manager of Saucony. He said, Luke, explain this World Litter Run thing and explain how you're giving all these shoes to the homeless. And I explained it to him, and I said, he said, well, give me a little bit of time. And then 3 weeks later, he said, Luke, I have 800 pairs of Gore-Tex boots for you. And I basically said, how did you make that happen? He said, well, we have overages and we have some returns and we have some stuff that was never used, but we're running out of warehouse space. And that's when I said, yeah, well, that's what I found out about these shirts and the medals. When the warehouse space is more valuable than the product that's in it, the product is litter. Because back in the day, this stuff used to be cut up and thrown into landfill. But now to these companies who have forward-thinking CEOs, they want to repurpose this stuff in any way they can. And so all of a sudden, the shoes that were in the warehouse space that was too valuable, they freed up. And since then, I've been sent over 5,000 pairs of shoes to put on homeless people in Halifax and in Kenya as well, and in the Gambia. And I'm just looking over my shoulder here. It's 4,933 pairs of shoes have been given away over the last 5 years. The total cost of those shoes, not retail, is $370,000. And so you have to think about that de-stressing the community, because then you're helping the homeless people have shoes, which takes stress off leg amputations, diabetic issues, frequent trips to the emergency, because the shoes are so valuable. So ultimately, when you think about it, you have the kids that need to get on the bikes in order to calm themselves. And if they can learn this at the end, perhaps at the other end of the spectrum, I'm not giving them away shoes in 30 years. Right? So if we can take care of this stuff on the front end through co-regulation, self-regulation, having the kids understand what stress is and what they have to do about it, and you can teach a 6-year-old this stuff, or a 5-year-old, it's going to last that person for their whole life. So they'll be able to manage what befalls them into the future. And maybe if we take care of the kids on the Spark bikes first, or picking up litter, I don't have to, give them shoes in the future. Does that make any sense?
It does, and it comes full circle. But the story doesn't end here. Not only do you help put bikes in and help with shoes and T-shirts and litter, you've also been involved with solar panels.
Okay, yeah. So again, a little bit of a stretch story, but when I first heard about this gentleman named Pamadou Sarr, I sponsored a friend, Aaron Poirier, to run across the Gambia. And I happened to have an extra phone because my plan had just finished. So I had a cell phone, and I knew through my work with John the value of a cell phone in John Carson again from Run for Life. I knew the value of a phone over there, because 10 years ago, phones weren't very prolific because the data was so expensive. But the governments knew that if they made the data more affordable, maybe they could afford the phone. And so if you gave a phone away in the Gambia at that time, the government would give you some free access minutes. And so I said, if I'm going to start something in the Gambia, I have to have regular communication with someone. So I told Erin the cost of her sponsorship, which was 5 pairs of running shoes, 5 singlets, and 5 pairs of shorts, and 5 pairs of socks, and some goos, and the food that you need. So I gave her all this stuff, and I said, all I want back, Erin, is I want you to give this phone to the coolest person that you meet in the Gambia. And when you give that phone to that person, you have to get them to call me. And when they call me, you have to make sure that they're ready for me. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to fall in love with them, and they're going to work with me for the rest of their lives. And so Pamadou called me. We definitely have a bromance, and we're going to work together for the rest of our lives, because it's already been a decade. Why would I stop now? And so what we did is I had an opportunity to buy some solar panels. I only had $1,000, which was gifted to me by my uncle, who was a priest, Father Tony. He gave me that in his will. And so I took that money to the Rotary, and the Rotary doubled it. They gave me $2,000 to buy these flexible solar panels. I rolled them up and put them in a suitcase with all the gear other than a car battery. So I sent that over to Pamadou, and he bought a car battery, and then he put it on the roof of the school so that all the teachers could charge their phones when the electricity went down. so that they could still contact who they needed to contact if there was issues with electricity, which is weekly there. And then we start to collect phones to send over to give to more teachers. So in that case, the Spark Bike is also a shoe, is also litter, is also solar panels, is also phone. Because what we're doing was reducing the stress of the community by providing a communication tool to the teachers in order to connect with the parents of the kids if the electricity went out. Right? So it's all the same thing. It's how do you reduce community stress? The people in Africa are exactly like us. They have all kinds of different types of stress. And how do you reduce it there? Right? And what I found was the commonality in order to find the best people to connect with is those who are willing to pick up litter. Number one, they're great people. Number two, criminals don't pick up litter. So you don't have to worry about the Nigerian prince, so to speak, taking your money. You know you can work with these people because they're willing to humble themselves, pick up some litter, or do whatever it takes to reduce the stress of their community. And so that's sort of how all this stuff connects, which is why, I love to watch how the Merit Center and how Dr. Shanker and Dr. Hopkins are rolling this thing out. It's slow, but it's sure. Now there's Self-Reg Global, and we're working with them with the same guy that became the World Litter Run champ. Again, back to Maulid. We're working with that organization in order to I'll have them understand what self-reg is. And then how do we build that out? And so one of the projects that we're doing is that we're building sandals out of old tires in order to put on kids who are having heart surgery because they can't leave the hospital without footwear, because if their foot gets cut, they're going to bleed out because they're on blood thinners, right? So these are the poorest kids with the worst heart conditions that doctors from the IWK go over to fix. But what they found out, one of the things that they had to do is make sure they had footwear. And the time that it took to find the footwear the first time they did it, it cut into the valuable time that they have to do the surgeries. And so when they came to me to see if I could provide sandals, I did give them 70 pair of sandals. But I said, I'd rather have them manufactured over there. And if I can raise the money, I'll give the money to the kids of this youth organization, have them build them out. Then it's an African project for Africans built in Africa from litter. So now we have 150 pairs of sandals that we have to deliver to Tenwick Health Center in order to provide the kids with footwear. A little bit of a sad part, of course, is our crew from Halifax can't go over this year because of COVID. And so we're getting these sandals to them in the next couple weeks because it's opened up there. Sadly, the hospital, we were going to do this last week, but sadly the hospital had its first COVID death. And they said, we can't do anything right now. And so we put it off for another couple of weeks until we can do it. And so what we're doing there is we're de-stressing the heart surgeons so that they don't have to worry about something so important compared to what they should actually be doing, which is teaching the African students to be the heart surgeons. And so that's another way to de-stress a community. And again, it's all the same stuff. It's the same project.
So I think, Luke, you're a very good citizen. And if everybody could do just half the stuff you do, the world would definitely be a better place. Is there somehow that people can reach out to you after hearing this podcast? Is it Twitter? Is it Facebook? Is it email? What's the best way to reach you?
Really all of the above. I'd say, if you're super keen and you think you're actually going to act on something, because I don't I don't necessarily tell this story a lot. This might be the third or fourth time I've told, and definitely the first time I've told it with this much detail, in terms of trying to tie the whole thing together. Um, is my email, and it's luke@aerobicsfirst.com. But you can certainly find me on Twitter, and it's Luke Shoefitter. Facebook, it's Luke MacDonald, Cole Harbor. And what else? And it's just Luke A. MacDonald on Instagram. So I'm pretty easy to find. But if you Google search hashtag World Litter Run, or Google search hashtag Fit It Forward, you'll inevitably find me.
Well, thank you so much for telling us your secrets. And even though this is our second full conversation, I even learned some new stuff that you do for the world.
I
was
saving a couple for you.
Yeah, so that was a bit of a positive surprise for me. So thanks for coming by, and it was a great time chatting with you.
Yeah, I'm honored to be on it, and I'm especially proud to be able to work with you, because you are in the trenches every day. And I follow your Twitter closely, as you know, because I think it's really the teachers that are making the biggest difference, and more people should be taking opportunities to help teachers out in as many ways as possible. So thank you very much, and you're certainly deserving of your national award, and I think you probably deserve it a few more, and hopefully you can get a couple.
Thank you. You're so kind.
Okay. Take care. Good night to your kids too.